This is a San Diego podcaster that got fired from her job for anti-Trump comments. This to me is interesting because I'm a podcaster, and for my viewers and listeners, you're viewing or listening to a podcast. And a San Diego woman who works for the government, for the Department of Veteran Affairs, at the same time, she hosted a podcast critical of former President Donald Trump, and she is now suing Donald Trump and U.S. government officials, claiming she was forced out of her job by the former president's administration due to her political views. Allison Gill, that's her name, is one of the co-hosts of the Mueller, She Wrote podcast that initially examined the investigation of a potential Russian interference in the 2016 election. And she ended up getting pushed out of her job. I mean, they tried to get her to relocate to D.C., and she objected to that. Now, what do you think of this? This is an interesting story because, number one, we have a First Amendment in this country, and that means we have free speech. That means you're allowed to say what you want. Okay. And you also are responsible for the consequences of your speech. So, if you libel someone, if you defame someone, and as a result, they lose $1 million, then you could be sued. The speech itself is free. You can say what you want, but you could be sued because the consequences of your speech inflicted material damage on someone else. So, is this a free speech violation? Well, was her podcast shut down? No, it wasn't. Okay. So on that level, that's good news that the podcast was not shut down. But secondarily, she got fired from her job at the Department of Veteran Affairs. Now, is that proper? Is that right? Now, I would still say no. I would still say from a free speech perspective, that was also wrong. Now, shutting down her podcast would be more wrong, but firing her from her job for having a podcast, in my opinion, is still wrong. Now, if she worked for a private company and she had a podcast where she was going after the president of her company, then as an owner of a private company, they should have full rights to dismiss her for attacking the leader of their company, for attacking their company brand. I mean, if you had an employee in your office that was running around, smack talking the CEO and constantly berating the CEO, they would get fired from their job, as they should. But in this case, it's a government-run agency. It's the Department of Veteran Affairs. And should a government-run agency fire employees as retribution for the words that they're saying? This is a case where in a public setting, I say no. In a private setting, it would be legally acceptable. I mean, we can debate the morality of it, but it would be legally acceptable to fire a person that worked for a private company that was smack talking their CEO and their company. I mean, frankly, if you're working for the government, why are you working for the government in the first place if you are upset with, well, in this case, it's former leader? So to me, this is all very interesting. But in this case, she was forced from her government job. I'm going to pay closer attention to this because I want to learn more. Okay, now